Hello there! If you've ever made a video and wished you had a super easy way of adding really slick chapter titles to it, well, I've built the ultimate template for this. Specifically, it's an Adobe Premiere motion graphic template, or MOGRT. I've created a free Lite version that's simple and clean with no bells and whistles. But more importantly, I built a Pro version that's fully customizable. And today, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to get started and add these beautiful chapter titles to your videos. Okay, so first things first, the basic requirements. You'll need a computer.
Computers?
I'll be showcasing this on my Mac Studio today, but this will also work on your PC, as long as you have a working copy of Adobe Premiere. For best results, I highly recommend making sure you're using the latest version. If you've got that basic setup, you're good to go. To get the template, visit my website at jkaslo.com. Here's the specific link to the Pro version, and here's the link to the free version. Both of these links are listed in this video description, and I'll also add them as a pinned comment down below. Okay, so once you've placed your order for the free Lite version or the paid Pro version, just $10, download the zip file and unzip it somewhere on your computer. Make note of where you save these files to, because you're going to need that MOGRT file in a second. Now let's head over to Adobe Premiere. Your Premiere workspace layout may look different than mine, in fact it probably will, but just make sure you have the Essential Graphics window open. Now, showing how to use and organize MOGRTs could be its own separate tutorial video, but for now I'll just point out there are a couple different ways to import and organize your MOGRTs. Okay, first I'll show you the more generic way, which is not the way I do this, but just FYI. You can click this button down here in the bottom right, and it'll bring up a prompt to manually add your new MOGRT file. But instead, what I recommend doing, especially if you're going to be using a lot of different MOGRTs like me, click this plus icon up here at the upper right. This will allow you to add an entire folder so that whenever you add new MOGRTs to any of these folders, they'll automatically show up in your list of templates. This really helps with being able to organize your MOGRTs, since you might want to hide a bunch of other ones that you're not currently using. Otherwise, if you've got tons of MOGRTs in one long list here, things can get out of hand real fast. So as you can see here, I've got a number of different MOGRT folders here, each with very specific purposes and for specific projects. But just to clean things up for this presentation, since I'm going to be demoing the chapters MOGRTs, which I've placed in my general folder, I'm just going to check general and uncheck all these other folders. Notice how my list below cleans up nicely. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's start out with the Lite version, before we get all into the juicy customizations that you can do with the Pro version. To begin, just drag the Lite version MOGRT into your timeline. You might be wondering, okay, well that looks nice, but how do I change any of it? Well, by simply clicking on it in your timeline, notice how our Essential Graphics window switches from Browse to Edit. With the Lite version, as you can see, just type in your title where it says Edit Chapter Title, and if you want to change the chapter number, just edit that text as well. And if you don't want any chapter number, simply delete the 1 and leave it blank. Okay, that's it for the Lite version. On to the Pro version, where all the magic really happens. I'm going to delete the Lite version that we previously added into our timeline, and this time, instead drag over the Pro version. As you can see, by default, it looks just like the Lite version, but just you wait.
Just you wait!
I've set up multiple folders to organize all the customizations, but these two primary folders should be open by default: Chapter Title and Chapter Number. Just like with the Lite version, you can of course edit the title text and chapter number, but notice all the additional customization options from the get-go. You can customize these texts as much as you like in terms of font, color, and size. And if by changing the font and size, the alignment gets off a little bit, you can easily tweak the position. Scrolling down further, if you start to expand some of these folders for additional settings, you can adjust the color and opacity of the circular progress bar, and likewise for the circle underneath. If you just want the chapter number and title, then just set the opacity to 0 for both the progress bar and the circle underneath. If you expand circle overall, here's where you can adjust the radius and stroke width. Notice that regardless of radius and stroke width, the progress bar will always be on top of the circle underneath. Also notice that as you increase the radius, the stroke width does not increase proportionally along with it. If you want to keep the same relative thickness, I recommend using the Adjust Scale option instead. Also, you can adjust the position to be anywhere that you want. Note that I did not link the chapter number with the circle, so you can either choose to align these elements together manually or you can separate them. Basically, you're not forced to always keep the number inside the circle. It's up to you. Okay, so expanding the next folder, Description. I've already placed some lorem ipsum dummy text in here, but you don't actually see it in your canvas because the opacity is set to 0 by default. So if you want to display some secondary text, just set the opacity to 100, or whatever you want it to be, then edit the text as you wish. Note that if you change the font size will get bigger, but the text will remain inside the same size text box. So what I recommend is adjust the font size until you get the text sized up as you wish within the text box in terms of line breaks, etc. And then use the Adjust Scale option to make the overall text and text box bigger. Additionally, you can adjust the position as well. So in theory, this extra text doesn't even need to be next to the circular progress bar and chapter number or title. And to make things even better, you've also got the option to add a background shade. Especially if you're going to use the extra text in the description box, I recommend using a background shade to help the text stand out better on top of your footage underneath. I've actually given you two options for the shade, a vertical shade and a horizontal shade. Pretty self-explanatory, but I'll walk you through both real quick. Let's start with the vertical shade. First thing you'll want to do is adjust the opacity so we can actually see it. The reason why you don't see anything initially is the default opacity is set to 0. Play around with the X% and the Y%. Increasing the X% will make your vertical shade wider, and by default Y% is set to 100%, basically stretching all the way to the bottom of your canvas. But let's say you don't want it to stretch all the way to the bottom. No problem. Just lower the Y percentage like so. Perhaps you want this to take over full screen. No problem. Just set the X% and the Y% both to 100%. By playing around with the color and opacity, you can create a lot of different looks here. And just like with the other elements, you can also adjust the position of the shade on its own, independent of the other texts, if you wanted to. Opening up the horizontal shade folder, we see pretty much the same setup, except this one is defaulted to X is 100%. I reckon you'll probably want to choose one or the other, the horizontal shade or the vertical shade, but in theory you could use both simultaneously if you wanted to. Okay, and last but certainly not least are the global settings, which is where you can quickly adjust the position and scale of everything together. A few additional points I want to make, and this is sort of a mini Adobe Premiere tutorial here. If you want to further change how your titles look and blend with your background, try changing the blend mode in the Effects control window. Also, although I made some slick animations to reveal and hide your titles, the MOGRT is essentially stationary, meaning it does not slide in from off screen. But if you'd like to do something like that, you can easily do so once again here in the Effects control window, under Motion. Once you've decided on the desired position for your chapter title, just set a position keyframe, back up a few frames, and then adjust the position to be somewhere off canvas. All you have to do is change the position values, and Premiere will automatically generate the keyframe for you. Once you've got your two keyframes, try hitting the plus key to zoom in a bit, and then add some easing to your keyframes to smooth out the animation. I've made both the Lite version and the Pro version to be 1 minute long by default. Obviously, your chapters are going to be longer than that or shorter than that, not a problem at all. With the selection tool, press V to activate the selection tool if it's not already active. Just move the cursor to either edge of the MOGRT in the timeline, and simply click and drag these edges to make the duration either longer or shorter. Easy peasy. And the beauty of these MOGRTs is, no matter how long or short these durations are, the entrance and exit animations will always be super crisp, plus the timing of the progress bar completion will always correspond with however long your MOGRT clip is in your timeline. Quick tip, once you've stylized your first title the way you want it, in terms of size and positioning and type styling and colors, just hold the Option key, or Alt on PC, and drag the MOGRT over to the right to duplicate it. It'll beautifully retain all the style settings you've just set, so all you need to do is change the specific text for your next chapter. That's it. Another quick tip, if you ever want to reset the MOGRT back to its default state, just head back over to the Effects Control window and click this little reset button next to Graphic Parameters. Now, this MOGRT was built for 4K video, but it's easy enough to format it on the fly for 1080p videos, or 720p for that matter. When you add the MOGRT to your timeline, you won't see anything, but just right-click on the MOGRT in your timeline and click Set to Frame Size. And voila, the MOGRT is immediately scaled to fit your 1080p canvas. And from there, you can adjust the various settings as you wish, just as you do in a 4K canvas. Note that this MOGRT was specifically built for landscape orientation canvases, not vertical portrait orientations. Typically, Instagram stories, reels, TikToks are short-form content, whereas chapters are usually specified only for long-form content. Now, if you all would like a chapters titling template built specifically for verticals, well, let me know. If there's enough demand, I will make it. All right, that does it for the demo of Chapters Lite and Chapters Pro. I put a lot of time and effort into all these little customization options, as I really wanted to create a lightweight, yet powerful and flexible tool to tastefully add titles to your videos. And not just doing so in a style of my making, but allowing you the ability to easily stylize chapter titles to truly make them your own. If you have any questions or run into any issues, or if you have any requests for features you'd like to see added in a future update of the Chapters MOGRTs, leave a comment down below and let me know. All right, if you've gotten any value from this video or you appreciate what I built here and am sharing with y'all, please do leave a like on this video. And if you want to learn more about video editing, animation, content creation, and creativity and productivity in general, be sure to subscribe to this channel. And taking it one step further, subscribe to my Massive Creativity Substack for a steady stream of knowledge, skills, and recommendations pertaining to creativity and productivity. Plus, doing so gets you 10% off all orders from my website, including 10% off the Chapters Pro template that I walked you through today. The link for that is jkaslo.substack.com, which, for your convenience, is also listed in the video description. All right, hope you enjoy your new Chapters MOGRT. Send me a link to your videos if you're using it. I'd love to see it in action. Okay, see you in the next video.
What to watch next?